Hi, my name's Carrie Beppel. I work for a large nonprofit agency in Kamloops called Interior Community Services, and one of the programs that I've worked in for the last 7 years is called Safe Spaces. And Safe Spaces supports youth up to 26 years of age that identifies lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, two-spirit, queer, and questioning youth and their allies. It's a really important program. We have about 25 to 30 youth that access it on our busy times. And it's important because youth need a place that they can go where they can identify with other youth and be around other youth. It's a safe, welcoming place where it's non-judging. And that's one of the things that I'm here to talk to the foster parents today is about how they can support youth that identify in the LGBTQ. I'll just use that as a short acronym because really if we were going to talk about the alphabet, we could be here all day. But those letters are really, really important. And so I think it's a good thing to talk a little bit about some of them. So I think when we talk about youth and care, I think that they already have enough obstacles that they have to overcome. Loss of family perhaps, their neighbors, their friends, their community. And I think there's just so many losses for them that to risk telling their personal story or sharing their truth is another form of being discriminated against or being turned away or being let down. And I think it's really difficult. And so I think when they come into a home of foster parents and they make that connection and there's that trusting relationship and that bond, it doesn't always happen very quickly, but for some, there's that connection where they feel safe and they feel that they're able to share. A lot of foster parents that I've talked to, they're like, well, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. And it's like, can you be a good listener? Yes. Can you be non-judging? Can you be nurturing and caring? And, you don't have to have all the answers, but just in that moment, it's about, do you accept me for who I am? Because that's just one part of me, is that I'm a lesbian. I'm also a mother and I'm a sister and I'm all these other things. But for some people, it's judging me based on just that one area of my life. One of the things that is really difficult when foster children are coming out or youth, I think in this day and age, especially with social media, a lot of them are coming out on Facebook or Twitter or however their Instagram, and it's like, accept me. And some of them are finding it's, the people that they thought would turn them away that are their biggest supports, and some of the ones that they're closest to, that they're finding that that's where people are not wanting to have anything to do with them. So I think it can be really difficult on Facebook, but there's also parts of social media that are really exciting. So there's a lot of games where you can try on a different personality, a different gender identity. There's a lot of different things that you can do in how you present yourself. So for the youth, there can be an online community that I think is important too. So you might have a youth that's in a really isolated community where maybe there's no services in the community that they can go to. And so maybe it's online where they can chat with another person that identifies the same way that they do. I think that's really important. And I know personally, when I first came out, I was in my early 20s, and just being around people that identified the same way that I did was very supportive, very freeing, very, I remember thinking that I didn't fit in, and I didn't come out to my parents, wasn't out in school. And so these youth are coming out at really young ages, and they're very brave, they're very courageous. And so it's just about supporting them. Sometimes the youth will talk to me about social workers. I had one youth that said she came out to her social worker as a lesbian, and the social worker basically said, oh, you just haven't met the right guy yet. And that's the kind of thing where she's lost trust, she's lost faith in her social worker. She's being judged for her sexuality. She's also being told, oh, at your age, you don't really know any better. Youth know very early, and also youth that identifies transgendered or gender variant, they know very early as well. And so I think I understand concerns where parents want to make sure that kids are sure about how they identify their sexuality or their gender, but I think it's just being supportive and not telling them, well, you don't know because you're too young to know. There's a lot of different terms, panromantic, genderqueer, you know, and it's really hard sometimes to keep up. And I think the biggest thing is understanding that for a lot of people, they don't identify gender as just male and female, it's just simply a binary system, that there's a lot more of a spectrum for gender. And I think just the more that people educate themselves, like when I go in and do homophobia and transphobia talks to schools or universities, I just ask that people be open and just, you know, if they have any questions, be respectful. We usually take a panel of youth, and for the youth it's often a really empowering experience for them because it's the first time that they've had somebody ask them questions in a respectful way. That's another thing that youth will say is, you know, they come out and suddenly people that aren't even barely acquaintances are asking them some of the most intimate details about their lives. And that's, you know, something that I would say can be really harmful too. So for foster parents, and I think just, you know, watching the language that you're using. You're sitting around the dinner table and, you know, if there's comments that are made, I mean, that the slang, "that's so gay," we hear that so much in society. And people will say that sometimes like they used to 20, 30 years ago about, "Oh, that's so retarded," or, you know, labels hurt. Making comments like that, I think just correcting yourself, but kids are watching that. And so if youth haven't come out, they might not think that you're a safe person that they can talk to because of some of the languaging that you're using. So I think just to ask questions, to learn more, there's lots of websites out there. EGAL Canada, PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, International Day Against Homophobia has a lot of stuff on there. There's a really good pic symbol, it's called the Gender-Bred Person, and that talks about gender identity, how we identify that in our brain, and it looks at the spectrum. So there's a lot of things that we can use to try and communicate with youth, to, you know, depending if they're really young or older. I had a 65-year-old woman who came to one of my workshops, a foster parent, amazing foster parent in a small rural community, and I showed her that, and she's like, I get it, I get it. And she kind of likened it back to when she was a young girl, and she was like, you know, I got the label of tomboy all the time, and I felt like I didn't fit in. And so that young person in her home that is identifying as trans, she's really making a connection, and she's just willing to go that extra bit of distance and learn and just be open to hearing from the youth, because it should be at their own pace. You know, it shouldn't be, okay, well now you're out, let's tell everybody, right? That's not for me to say. So it's really important that we just, you know, support the youth, advocate for them where we need to. If they're having trouble with the social worker, maybe getting permission to go have a conversation with the social worker about the impact that it's having on that youth. But a lot of the youth are very well spoken and very able to speak how they're feeling, and just making sure that, you know, you're supporting them and loving them and just being there for them. I think that's really what's the most important. Fostering was the hardest job that I ever did, and it was the most rewarding job I've ever done.